This month of the How's All That Workin' For You podcast is sponsored by J. Brooks Coffee Roasters in Memphis, Tennessee. Urban Joe is the house favorite at J. Brooks for cold brew coffee. The legendary flavor of Urban Joe will ignite your taste buds with captivating shades of cocoa and cream. With a pleasantly balanced, bold body, the dark roast lover will fall head over heels for this roast. Cold brew is very quick and simple to make. It contains 2/3 less acid than hot brew coffee, so it's a perfect choice for anyone who has reflux or needs a stomach-friendly option for coffee. And if you make cold brew at home, you can make both cold and hot coffee with your solution. Everyone loves an adventure story. Make your day an epic adventure with a steaming cup or cold brew of Urban Joe. To order this signature blend for yourself and learn more about J. Brooks Coffee, click the link in the show notes or visit jbrookscoffeeroasters.com. That's the letter J, brookscoffeeroasters.com. You are officially invited to create some breathing room. This is the absolute best podcast to find the strategies, resources, and motivation you need to stop drowning in overwhelm, break free from hustle culture, and live out your God-given purpose. I'm your host, Rachel Baker, and girl, I've been there, done that. It is my God-given purpose to help you find space for an intentional life so you can confidently live in those strengths, skills, and passions that light you up and serve others. I know you are ready to create some breathing room, so let's do it together. Welcome to episode 7 of Create Some Breathing Room. Today, we are talking about the top 3 questions you need to ask before saying yes to, well, pretty much anything. If you're trying to determine if your answer to something is yes or no, as far as if it lands on your plate or not, this episode is for you. This topic is very near and dear to my heart because it's something that was really difficult for me to really even consider as an option for a really long time. But as we discussed back in episode 4, I believe it was, burnout's a very real thing. And I had reached a point where I was that person. I was fried to a crisp and something had to change. So the questions we're going to talk about today, these are now the questions I have to consider if I want to avoid reaching that burnout point again. And if you haven't listened to episode 4, you're going to want to go back and listen when you're done here because we do talk about the best ways to avoid burnout in that episode. And so we'll be sure to link that in the show notes. You'll want to go back and check that one out. So here's the thing. I want to be very upfront and honest at all times. These questions are still hard for me. Not to actually answer them necessarily, but the fact that I need to answer them anytime I'm deciding, is this mine to do? Does this need to take a place on my schedule, on my to-do list? It's hard for me to say no, right? And I've talked about this before, but I want to do all the things. I want to help all the people. So if that's you, just know I get it. I feel you. I get it so deeply. But these 3 questions are going to save a lot of heartache. So let's get to them. The first question that I ask myself, and I want you to ask yourself when presented with a thing, is, do I have enough time? And this sounds like a no-brainer. The trick with this one is being honest with yourself. Because I don't know about you, but I think it's really easy to go like, oh yeah, I could totally get that done. I can absolutely squeeze that in. No problem. I've got room for that. But if you really sit down, look at all the things on your plate. If you've gone through the process that I teach in Overcome the Overwhelm, you know you do the brain dump and you sort it out, you prioritize it, you find it a home where it's actually going to get done on your planner, right? Like you go through that process, then you can look and see, is there actually space on the calendar for this to happen? If not, and it's an important thing, what gets sacrificed. And we're going to talk some more about that. But the very first thing is, do I even have enough time for this thing? That's your first yes or no. And if it's a no, you can move on to the next ones. You can see if you can make time, right? But that gets tricky. So, question 1, do I have enough time? Question 2 is, does this align with my priorities, values, and goals? And really, you could kind of condense this one down to, do I want to? Do I even want to do this thing? Is somebody offering you an opportunity or asking something of you that doesn't align at all with the direction you're headed, right? And it may be that it's not something that personally speaks to your personal goals, but maybe part of your goals is helping other people, serving others. Maybe it speaks to that value and that priority in your life. So it doesn't have to be, does this help me reach my goals in life? It may just be, does this align with a thing that I prioritize in my life, that I value? And that could be doing things for other people. So if you've gone through these, you say, yes, I've got time to do it. Yes, this aligns with my priorities, my values, and or my goals. I want to do it. The last thing I want you to look at, this is the kicker. This is the one that gets me every time. Here's the question. If I say yes to this, then what am I saying no to? Because whether we like it or not, that's the trade-off. Because let's talk about that first question again. If someone says, hey, can you do this thing? And you look at your calendar and say, do I have enough time? And the answer is, actually, I don't have enough time, but I want to make time because this does really align with my priorities. I really want to make this happen, or I really want to help this person, or this is absolutely in line with my goals and I need to find space for this. That happens, right? And that's okay. But then if you say yes to that thing, what are you saying no to? So what are you not putting on your schedule, or what are you removing from your schedule? If it's something where you're making time, are you sacrificing sleep? That's a kicker for me. I am the first I'll just get up earlier. I'll just go to bed a little later. It's fine. I'll squeeze it in. Except then I'm tired and cranky. I really need to quit doing that. So it could be sleep. It could be lunch break, right? Maybe you decide I'll just eat a protein bar at my desk today while I get this thing done. Or I'll just not have breakfast that morning and I'll crank this thing out. I'll go to this other meeting instead. That's what ends up happening. Or maybe there's something else you wanted to get done and you decide to move it to the back burner because this other thing takes a priority. I want to point out, not all of these things are like consequences as far as a bad result. If I come to you and say, hey, I'm moving, could you help me come unload these boxes or this furniture at my house? And you're like, I absolutely want to help you. That is really high on my list of priorities, is helping other people. I know how hard it is to move. Let me help you with that. Cool. What are you saying no to in order to do that? Maybe you decide to not work on a project you were going to do that day, put it off another day, and instead come help me move, which I'm super thankful for. And you're happy to do that. It's not that it's horrible, like, oh, you're pushing off this project. If that's okay, then that's okay. But you've got to decide if it's okay. If it's a project that's due at the end of the week and you don't know when else you're going to get it done, and you decide to come help me move anyway, and then you go back and you're like, oh, shoot, I don't have enough time to get this done now. That's not so okay. And then you are overwhelmed and drowning and stressed. And I would never want to ask you to put yourself in that kind of situation to help me move, right? Of course, all of these hypothetical scenarios, but that's what ends up happening. We take on too much, squeeze in too many things. We don't actually have space for it all, or it doesn't actually align with what we want and need to be working on. And then we feel stressed and anxious and overwhelmed. And why? And I can't. And that's when you land in that spot because you didn't have time, or it didn't align with your priorities, or you said no to things that you probably shouldn't have said no to say yes to this other thing. So I just want you to hear, while these are important questions to ask, it's not that there are right and wrong answers, and other people can't necessarily determine that for you. That's why I want you to hear and know these questions, because you need to be the person deciding intentionally what you are allowing to fill your time. So, quick recap of the 3 questions, and I want to wrap us up with practical, intentional steps that you can take moving forward. When it's time to decide if you are going to say yes to something, I want you to ask, 1, do I have enough time? 2, does this align with my priorities, values, and or goals? This can also be, do I want to? And I know we do things we don't want to, but that's an important question to ask. And then 3, if I say yes to this, what am I saying no to? Once you know the answers to each of these, you're going to have a clearer understanding of the tasks and events that actually need to land on your plate and which ones you need to say no to. And that's not easy for some of us. No is almost like a bad word. We just can't quite spit it out. I've gotten better at it over the years. These questions have helped. Knowing boundaries are important has helped. I do want to say one additional note here is something I've realized is that my no means that someone else gets the opportunity to say yes. And I've realized I don't want to be that kid in the class who always raises their hand for every question and then nobody else gets the chance to show that they know the answer too. We don't want to be that kid, right? It's kind of obnoxious. If you are constantly saying yes, that means other people don't have that opportunity to say yes. So that also has helped me along the way. I hope it's helpful for you to hear that your no to something also means that somebody else has the opportunity to say yes. And it may be their turn, right? And I know you might still be struggling to answer one or more of these questions about something that's going on in your life. If that happens, if you take this action step after listening to this episode and you kind of start to evaluate things and you're like, oh, I don't know. Is it a yes? Is it a no? I want you to hear there's nothing wrong with that, right? It's not always crystal clear which path forward is the next best step. And we can't always work that out on our own. I don't always try to work it out on my own. I have friends, colleagues, people that I go to for mentoring, for coaching, and they help me sort through some of those things when I just can't see it. So if that's a spot that you are in, then getting together on a clarity coaching session with me is a really great way to bust through that confusion and create a game plan that's actually going to move you forward and help you feel confident about it. So if that sounds like something you need, you can sign up for a time that works for you. There's a link in the show notes, or you can go to racheldbaker.com/coaching. And you can read kind of more what's included in that with a clarity coaching session. You do not have to do this all by yourself, and I would be honored to help you determine which things on your plate most deserve your time and attention. And that's based on your personal goals and preferences. So I'd love to work through that with you. Take a hot second, look at what's on your plate, and ask the 3 questions we've talked about today. Thanks so much for listening today. Be sure to check the show notes to get links for all the resources mentioned in this episode. As always, your reviews make such a difference, so thank you for taking the time to leave those for us. Your ratings and thoughts mean so much. I love reading each and every one. As we wrap up today, please remember, life can feel crazy and overwhelming sometimes, but you will never regret taking the time to create some breathing room.